Thank you very much. Representatives Jackie Spears.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this hearing. Ranking Member Gomert, thank you as well, and for members for participating. This is a human tragedy, a national tragedy. Up to 300,000 children in our country are enslaved sexually. The number ranks anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000. Over the past 5 months, I've immersed myself in this issue. I've talked to local DAs. I've talked to the U.S. Attorney. I've talked to the one FBI agent in the entire Bay Area who has responsibility over this issue. I've talked to the CEO of Craigslist. I've talked to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I've talked to many victims. One victim, when I asked, how many times were you forced to do this a day, said a minimum of 10, a maximum of 15 times a day. She was 17 years of age. So to put it very simply, Houston, we have a problem. It's not just in Houston. It's in Atlanta. It's in San Francisco. It's in Oakland. It's in New York. It is across this country, and we are not addressing the issue. We have quite literally taken our eyes off the ball. There are reasons for this perfect storm. First, the Internet. Before the Internet, those who wanted to purchase sex with underage children had to venture outside of their homes, subjecting themselves to potential arrest and public stigma. Today, perpetrators hide behind their personal computers and have a child at their doorstep with a click of a button. Between 2004 and 2008, child sex trafficking complaints originating from the Internet actually grew by 1,000%. And that's just the number of complaints, not the total volume. In fact, estimates are that on Craigslist alone, there are more than 3.2 million posts on the adult services section a year. Now, this section has been taken down very recently, but just to give you an appreciation of how widespread this is. Further, websites are literally immune from being held liable for these crimes. In an effort to spark innovation, Congress passed the Communications Decency Act in 1996. Today, websites escape liability when an ad on their site results in child prostitution, rape, or even death. I'm pleased to see that a representative of Craigslist is here today. It's in my district. The founder is a constituent, so I recognize full well what I'm taking on here. Thinly disguised ads for sex on Craigslist received 3 times as many responses as ads placed on any other sites. So when Craigslist says, well, look to these other sites, remember that they have been the 800-pound gorilla in this industry of sex trafficking of children. Recent reports have speculated that the ads that previously appeared on the adult services section will migrate to other portions of the site. Let the company not forget that they control the activities of their sites. If they are truly committed to this issue, they will exercise all due diligence that this issue commands. That said, Craigslist is certainly not the lone wolf. The activity taking place on myredbook.com, arrows.com, and Backpage is equally as horrific. These sites are facilitating crimes, and we must consider an effective response within the confines of the First Amendment. Second, in an era of competing priorities, child sex trafficking has in effect been decriminalized. You know, we pass tough laws, and then they sit on the shelves. Even though the Trafficking Victims Protection Act imposes a lifetime sentence on those convicted of trafficking, it is rarely used in prosecutions. We should all ask the question, why is it? During a 7-year period, 60% of child sexual exploitation cases presented to the U.S. Attorney's Office, 60% have been declined prosecution. Meanwhile, in contrast, just 15% of drug trafficking and 26% of weapon charges were declined. Why the disparity? Our priorities are clearly out of balance, and perpetrators are taking full advantage. In fact, a pimp selling just for children can earn over $600,000 a year. Today, we live in a country where a person is more likely to go to jail to serve time for selling marijuana than for selling a child in sex. In the San Francisco Bay Area, where my district is located, as I mentioned earlier, only one FBI agent is assigned to work with local law enforcement and the U.S. Attorney's Office in the name of curtailing sex trafficking. Further, the inability to bring trafficking to justice is directly tied to inadequate victim services. Girls who are rescued from prostitution typically come from abusive family situations. In fact, between 60 and 90% have experienced physical and/or sexual abuse. Victims will rarely report the identity of his or her trafficker because they fear retaliation, or they simply are dependent on their pimp for simple survival. These children have been traumatized, they've been brainwashed, they've been abandoned, and they need specialized services and resources for successful recovery. It is a travesty that only 5 residential facilities specific to this population exist across this country. Congresswoman Maloney's bill is important, but her bill should be increased tenfold, and the money we commit to this should be increased tenfold. Again, I thank the committee for taking up this very serious issue.
Thank you. Judge Poe.